When faced with the question, who are you, what would your response to this be? Some people will undoubtedly default to their job, saying that they're a doctor, lawyer, teacher, etc. Others may default to their hobbies, saying they're a gamer, musician, or some other third thing. And if you're one of those people who thought of and or have answered this question with either of those things, I'd like to say congratulations. But you didn't answer my question. See, I never asked you what you did, nor did I ask what you're interested in. I asked, who are you? As in, what is your identity? Unsurprisingly, this is one of the hardest questions any human can answer, as it requires a person to put away the tangible titles and descriptions to come up with something personal that the outside world can't give. It may sound a bit superfluous, seeing as most of us get through life without really considering the question, but I urge you to answer it, as it is one of, if not the most important questions a person can ask themselves. There's an old proverb I read that changed my life when I saw it, as it states, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." On the surface, it sounds like the proverb is talking about sight and how people will somehow die without it, which is a way it can be taken, but obviously it's not correct thanks to blind people walking around in the modern day. In actuality, the proverb is talking about identity and how without it people malfunction, doing things that aren't beneficial to themselves or others. In the world of video games, there have been an increasing number of characters who exemplify this proverb, like Raiden from Metal Gear Solid 2 or Roxas from Kingdom Hearts 2. But for today's video, I want to focus on Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII. Cloud Strife is one of the RPG genre's most recognizable characters, not only being the protagonist of Final Fantasy's most critically acclaimed game at the time, but also being the poster child of just how much the developers, Square Enix, love milking a success, as he would go on to either star or make guest appearances in many other games and movies that don't have anything to do with his initial game. However, despite Cloud's popularity, there's something important about him that tends to get diluted when he's brought over into most material after Final Fantasy VII, being how much of an unstable mess he is. From his identity crisis that spans 2 discs of Final Fantasy VII's 3-disc run, to his desperate lean on his former job description, to his mental breakdown when all he thought he was got stripped away from him, Final Fantasy VII seems to be a game that's almost tailor-made to tear Cloud apart, as the game pulls no punches in ripping Cloud's false identity to pieces, as it then tells him to make something of the man he truly is, and not what he hopes everyone will see him as. Even after nearly 3 decades since its initial release, Cloud's story still manages to be just as interesting today as it was back in '97, and while in a vacuum it's a cool story, there's a lot that can be gleaned to warn the audience about the dangers of not having, attaching, or letting others dictate what a person's identity is, as well as showing people how to actually obtain their own identity. There's a lot to cover in this video, so buckle up as we dive into Cloud Strife and the struggle of identity. So, who is Cloud Strife and what can we learn from him? Well, to understand more about the lessons Cloud learns throughout the game, we first need to understand the setting of Final Fantasy VII, as just about everything in the game is set up to play off the world the story takes place in. The setting of FF7 is situated on a dying planet, where thanks to the corporate greed of the General Electric Power Company, the planet, it never gets named throughout the game, is being drained of its lifeblood known as a life stream and being made into a substance called Mako Energy, so that the bigwigs at the top can power corporate buildings, amusement parks, and resorts. You know, the essentials. Due to the planet's slow death at the hands of commercialism, a ragtag group of eco-terrorists named Avalanche have come onto the scene to stop Shinra from draining the planet dry. Unfortunately, thanks to being a bunch of untrained civilians from the slums, they have to hire some muscles to make sure they can get past Shinra's offenses, and that's where Cloud comes in. Being a former member of Shinra's elite guard called Soldier, and at that being the highest rank one could be in first class, Cloud is able to help Avalanche's leader Barrett force his way in and blow up one of the multiple Mako reactors. Despite being hired by a bunch of planet lovers, Cloud is anything but, only caring about 2 things, being himself and his paycheck, as he goes off to burn any possible friendship with Barrett before the job is even done. In true JRPG fashion, Cloud's earliest defining trait is the fact that he's a jerk, setting him up to eventually change as the narrative continues. However, with that being said, arguably the thing that changes the most about Cloud is his white-hot admiration for his former job description, in which, until the change happens, if an opportunity presents itself, he won't hesitate to tell a person that he was in Soldier First Class. This being especially bad in the remake, where many new conversation points were made just to highlight how much of a problem this is.
What are you, 20-something?
First. Huh? Soldier first class. Doesn't go into the 20s.
What the hell you talking about? I mean your age, not your goddamn rank.
Needless to say, being Soldier First Class was a bit of an accomplishment for Cloud, and in a sense, I can't really blame him for being a little proud. Not only was it a childhood dream for him to get into Soldier First Class so he can be like his hero Sephiroth, but even then, only the physically strong can even enter Soldier in the first place, as they need to survive the Mako Bath, which gives them their enormous strength. Being Soldier First Class is not something that just anyone can do. However, the problem isn't the fact that he's happy he accomplished his goal, the problem is the fact that Cloud let his goal become his whole identity. For just about every new character Cloud is introduced to, at some point he will mention that he was in Soldier First Class. And while some characters literally ask him about it, I think just about everyone's interest in his former job can be summed up by when Cloud encounters his former boss, President Shinra, who couldn't even bother to remember who he or any of the other members of First Class are aside from Sephiroth, despite there being like 4 members in the entire group. Not only does his former job description literally tell the cast nothing about who Cloud is as a person, only highlighting his physical characteristics, but nobody really cares what Cloud used to do. But he cares a lot about it, which unfortunately ends up forming a wall between the people around him and himself, where the people who want to get to know him better can't because he won't let go of the title and be who he actually is. But with that being said, it makes you wonder, if Cloud was so proud of his position in Soldier First Class, why on the planet would he quit doing something he had so much pride in? Well, that can't be addressed at the moment, as things take a turn for the unexpected when Sephiroth arrives on the scene and kills everyone in Shinra Tower, stabbing President Shinra in the back. Literally. Suddenly, everything is turned on its head as Barret and the others question, wasn't Sephiroth on their side? When Cloud corrects him by saying Sephiroth betrayed Shinra a long time ago. During a mission to fix the reactor in Cloud's hometown, Nibelheim, Sephiroth caught a glimpse of a grotesque monster falling out of a pod, and at the top of the reactor, a door which read the same name of his mother, Genova. Putting 2 and 2 together, Sephiroth would then begin reading the many reports hidden away in the Shinra mansion, cluing him in that he was manufactured to carry Genova's cells, as Shinra was determined to create a Cetra, a human who had the capability of leading him to the Promised Land, a place overflowing with lifestream energy where he could harness as much Mako as he wanted without worry of depraving the planet. Sephiroth then proceeds to lose his mind, thinking that the normal humans betrayed his mother, being blissfully unaware that Genova was an alien who tried to kill the Cetra, who Shinra mislabeled as one of them. Despite being born of normal parents, well, a normal mother and Hojo, Sephiroth considers Genova his mother, and as a result believes that the planet should belong to her and not the humans currently running the world. As a result, he goes off to burn Nibelheim to the ground, even taking the opportunity to slice up Cloud's childhood friend Tifa in the process. Being a few steps behind, Cloud encounters Sephiroth looking to stop him, and as the fight began, Cloud forgot what happened next. If you're wondering how he could forget such a pivotal moment in his life, that's a great question. But an even better question is what Sephiroth ends up asking Cloud when they see each other again on a boat, where after Cloud exposits about how he wants to settle the score between them, Sephiroth asks Cloud, "Who are you?" Unlike the rest of this video, this is not a philosophical question or some kind of thinking point to chew on when the fight is over. Sephiroth genuinely has no idea who the man that apparently defeated him is. But how could this be? Unless one of the two aren't telling the truth, and spoiler warning, it isn't the one who's insane. To skip ahead by like 20 hours, as it turns out, Sephiroth never saw Cloud at Nibelheim when he attacked, nor did he ever know him to be a member of Soldier First Class. As it turns out, Cloud remembered his dead friend Zack and replaced his role for himself unconsciously. Had he managed to do that? Well, let's just say what he was going through at the time left him out of his mind. Cloud doesn't buy Sephiroth's story at first, but with Tifa's overly protective attitude towards his past and his own attempts at remembering when he became a soldier coming up short, he realizes that Sephiroth isn't lying, and as a result, Cloud stops functioning. This is the scene that I personally feel represents where there is no vision, the people perish the best, as Cloud never had a proper vision of who he was as a person. He just sought to emulate Zack's role and capabilities unconsciously, which when the truth came out, made it an extremely painful revelation. Who is Cloud without his title, and can Cloud identify as anything other than Soldier First Class? These are questions he never took the time to actually figure out, and so when the title and everything he held so dear is stripped away from him, he's left with nothing as he comes to the realization that Cloud Strife, the man he thought he was, doesn't actually exist. In other words, Cloud perished. And what's worse is that in this vulnerable state, he's open to just about anything, even when it's not 100% accurate. Now, it should be noted that Cloud is no stranger to breakdowns, as he's been having mental fits since the first hour of the game. However, in the past, he was able to muscle through them due to having some kind of mental foundation to stand on. But from there, it only gets worse, as Cloud would experience fits of laughter, attacking his friends, and even helping Sephiroth come closer to his goal of destroying humanity. None of this made sense in the moment and would in time get Cloud to fear himself and the potential destruction he could bring. And yet, despite that, he still felt the need to hunt down the monster that burned Nibelheim to the ground. Sephiroth then takes Cloud's newly weakened mind to plant the seed that he is a clone of Sephiroth. As it turns out, the real Sephiroth has been technically dead for 5 years, stuck in an iceberg in the northern crater, but mentally conscious. Thanks to his estranged father, Professor Hojo, making clones of Sephiroth by injecting people with Genova cells, Sephiroth was able to take control of the clones using his mind and enact his will to destroy the planet despite being on ice. In addition, thanks to Genova's ability to replicate animated being's physical appearance, he states that one of his clones copied the real Cloud's physical appearance when he got into contact with. There's another saying that the world will ask you who you are, and if you don't know, the world will tell you. The meaning behind this one is pretty straightforward, as in, if you don't have an identity, someone else will give you one. However, this is a dice roll, as the answer you get is dependent on the person talking, as sometimes they can be nice, and other times they can be cruel. And needless to say, this scene is a clear picture of the latter. With Cloud unable to provide an answer for himself when Sephiroth mentally attacked him, he now seeks help from Hojo to basically give him an identity, only to be given the title of failure for his troubles, which only gets him to sink further into his newfound despair. From here, Cloud gets even more unstable, as with Sephiroth now holding the black materia, the northern crater changes completely, leaving Cloud afloat down the live stream until he ends up in Mideel, where Tifa and the gang find out that he's completely out of his mind thanks to the large amount of Mako he took in while floating downstream. The situation looks dire, and it only gets worse from there, as with the danger that Sephiroth poses to the planet, he causes the very rock itself to begin releasing a gaggle of robots known as the weapons to protect itself from him, causing landmasses to start shifting their position, including a hospital that Cloud and Tifa were in, causing them both to fall into a slew of green slime. Somehow, thanks to the livestream, Tifa is able to talk to Cloud in his mind, and thanks to her memories, Tifa is able to use them as a correction sheet to help Cloud piece together his fractured past. Within time, she is able to convince him that he is the one and only Cloud Strife, and that his memories are his, as while in Cloud's mind, his ego revealed to her that he hid from Tifa back in Nibelheim as a Shinra troop, not wanting to own up of being unable to live up to his childhood self's claim of becoming a soldier. With Cloud no longer hiding the truth, they're even able to find out how he beat Sephiroth, in which, despite the soldier supposedly being out of his league, Cloud stabbed him in the back and tossed him off a bridge, which is a surprisingly mundane way that Sephiroth got dealt with, but more on that later. With Cloud now confident in himself, this only begs the question of who is Cloud. There's a lot of things I could say about him based on what the game provides through his and supporting cast dialogue, but personally, I think his dialogue with Tifa when they're in his broken mind is probably the most honest interpretation of Cloud's identity. Cloud is a guy who wants to be strong to protect the people he cares about, and also wants to be strong so that Tifa will notice him. With that in mind, it puts into perspective all of his actions throughout the game, why he tries to act cool all the time, why he seemingly only listens to Tifa, and why he's doggedly chasing after Sephiroth all stems from that one moment. It's at this point that Final Fantasy VII gives us a more honest Cloud to follow, as he stops trying to cover up his shortcomings with cool actions and is able to just be himself around the party, flaws and all. Sometimes he's able to come across as cool to the others, and sometimes he makes them facepalm with how lame his one-liners are, but at the heart of it, he's no longer trying to impress them and make himself big in his or their eyes, as he's found his identity, and no matter what anyone else says to him, he's not going to break anymore. This then leads us to the ultimate battle against Sephiroth, which, you know, for as bombastic as this boss is, seeing Meteor crash through multiple celestial bodies as it threatens the planet's atmosphere, I think the part that stuck with me the most when I beat Final Fantasy VII was at the very end where Cloud meets Sephiroth in his mind, and upon touching the ground, Cloud decimates the soldier, defeating the last vestige of doubt in his mind. After all the build-up, after all the decorated titles the game gave Sephiroth, and the sheer absurdity of his feats, the legendary soldier was beaten by some kid from the sticks who wanted to protect his girlfriend. Actually, it's worse than that, because he lost twice to this dude even after amassing enough power to rip off his limbs without even touching him, and yet he still lost to Cloud and his ragtag band of friends. It makes you think that, in the end, titles, or at the very least the titles that most people strive for, are pretty worthless in the grand scheme of things, as all that really matters in the end is who you are and not what other people decide to call you. Just like Cloud, we as people are more than a simple title, job, or hobby can ever really describe, and to put our identity into any one tangible thing is like asking to fall apart at the slightest breeze. If you don't immediately know what your identity is by the end of this video, then that's fine. This isn't exactly something that's simple to figure out, as it requires a lot of reflection on who you are to even come up with an answer. Speaking personally, it took me 20 plus years to even realize what my identity is, mostly because I wasn't trying to figure it out until recently, but with it, I've found myself growing mentally, being able to take on challenges that I used to shudder at the mere thought of doing. In the past couple of years, I realized that I'm a success going somewhere to succeed. My past and whatever happened back there doesn't define me. All that matters is what happens today and what I make of it now. And since I'm no longer defined by my past, I can make all types of affirmations, like how I'm the head not the tail, the lender not the borrower, I'm an overcomer of odds and circumstances, and above some of these things, I'm a creative wanting to make something cool and share it with others. So with that being said, I ask again, who are you? If you have an idea, feel free to leave your answer in the comment section below. And if you don't, that's cool, just chew on the question until something hits you. Remember that no matter what you've been through, you're not a failure, so don't identify as one.